This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 203. Derek Chapman on awesome hypnosis.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Welcome back to the program, and welcome back to Derek Chapman, who was first on the program back in January 2018. And just having watched some of the things that he has been up to since we last had him on the program, just had to have him on here back once again to talk about an amazing series of themes, talking about working with clients, releasing anxiety, working with clients to release fears, and really working at times with ourselves to overcome our own expectations and recognize that sometimes we have a message that needs to be shared with a much larger audience. So you're going to hear Derek talk about some of those themes of taking that massive leap forward, getting stronger results with his clients, and really helping to rethink his business model in such a way that now is serving people in a much better, more empowering way. Head over to the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com with this specific episode to get more details about Derek as well as his programs and just learn more about how to put the entire awesome process of hypnosis together. Continued thank you, by the way, to those of you who've been reaching out in terms of the ongoing support with the book, Work Smart Business. We're well over about, at this point, about 6 dozen testimonials, reviews, 5 stars online, hitting some massive benchmarks in terms of the Amazon categories. If you don't yet have a copy, both digital and print, is now available over at worksmartbusiness.com. Plus, over on that site, you can get a freebie. It's the Positive Influence Power Pack. Learn 2 techniques of influence, one for yourself and one ethically with others. Details over at worksmartbusiness.com. And for the live version of Neurolinguistic Business, check out worksmarthypnosis.com/NLP biz. That's my 2-day post HypnoThoughts Live conference offering where we're going to be applying NLP principles to your presentations, to your business, to your writing to help you to really punch up your business results. And with that, let's jump directly into this week's session. This is number 203. Derek Chapman back with you once again. Derek Chapman on awesome hypnosis.
Thank you. I put my prices up. I see fewer people, but for the change is longer lasting. In that I've honed down consultations, because consultations where I spend a lot of time with clients. Also the actual techniques I use. I spent a lot of money on my training, and now I've sort of honed in like you do, distilling what works and what does not work. And after a while, when you trust in your own instinct, you can get the person in front of you. So when you get better about making mistakes, you can take that learning and move forward a bit.
Yeah, I love that idea of, looking at what you've been doing and refining it down. The anecdote is that, I offer to my students that they can come back to future classes at no extra cost. And it's fun to hear that game of, you're doing that differently now. It's like, yeah, because I've seen another 1,000 people. Here's what's different. Well, yeah. If you had to kind of chunk it down to what's different about your approach that's empowering you, that's allowing you to do it in a shorter span of time and be more effective, what are some of those bullet points that help to refine that?
I would say it's probably client responsibility.
Yeah.
Because in throughout my whole, and people's beliefs as well, your own beliefs as a practitioner or a hypnotherapist, when you, I worked, I'll give you an analogy or a metaphor which kind of explains it. I used to work in restaurants, and I used to be cooking sometimes, and you don't get that. And I used to own restaurants, and I used to worry about, oh my God, you're really as good as your last meal. And before this podcast, I thought about that, and that sort of would worry people, And but if you think about it, these days, everyone's got access to junk food. Everyone's got access to lots of food, and they come to your restaurant to have a meal, and they're quite full by the time they get there.
Yeah,
full of their own ideas and stuff like that. Where I'm coming from. What a great metaphor. And after a while, when they're hungry for it, that meal tastes absolutely delicious, and the digestion, they can digest it, and they can probably find themselves sleeping a lot easier as well. But when people come into your sessions, they're full, they've been to so other people, and they've got their own preconceived ideas. They're not listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that disconnect sometimes can stop you, the client, and you moving further. And like I recognize with clients immediately when to use any technique or not. Because if you do the A or B technique, it's as if they're saying, oh, no, I'm full. That's not working for me. Because basically they've had enough to eat. It's like when they can allow themselves to relax and really want the change, it's so much easier. So I don't take that premise now that, you're only as bad as your last, you're only as good as your last meal. Because it's the client, so I give that pre-frame when a client comes to see me, are you ready to change? And, I'll take it from there.
Yeah, what's beautiful about that is, again, getting back to that idea of client responsibility, that I'd say that was a breakthrough for me years ago, too, of recognizing that it's not just I am the almighty hypnotist and I command this to happen. It's instead, here are the things that we're doing. And I introduce this sometimes, that to break it all down, even just a simple hypnotic suggestion is a cause followed by an effect. It's an outcome followed by a result. Take a deep breath. That helps you to relax even further. Throw out your cigarettes. You take back control of your life. And as you take this action, you're going to realize this new result. So what are some of those, if it's action steps, if it's mindsets of responsibility, how are you introducing that to your client? And give us an example of one of those, please.
Okay, well, 98% of people come to see me are anxiety-based issues, So the pre-frame for that is everyone gets anxious. They really do. It's a normal human condition. And people say, yeah. I say even the guy who probably prescribes that medication, citalopram, sertraline, or Prozac, he's probably got a bit of anxiety as well. It's a normal human condition. And when people get the fact that it's normal to have a tiny bit of anxiety, well, hallelujah. Because I guarantee you, when you see a client, they don't just wave that magic wand and everything's all gone. They'll have a bit of anxiety. But when you can reframe that, how anxiety is, and almost like educate the client that basically it's a normal human condition. But then the brain can often, trick you. So it's almost like an education of, like, I call the conscious mind like a half-cooked hamburger from McDonald's that tries to make meaning on most things you're doing. And I also give them that. I listened to the podcast last week of was it Melissa Tiers, who it's almost like empowering your client with how the gut. I give them like how the gut's got 150 million neurons and the chest has got 100 million neurons. Yet the brain's only got about 50 million neurons. In other words, your brain, that burger brain, can actually trip you up sometimes and thinking that you're anxious and maybe you're probably excited, and they go, oh, I get that sort of thing. So they can't fail. I mean, that's another frame. Imagine if you could not fail. And then people think, oh, what could you do? Because basically you take them out of their mindset, that negative mindset, I can't do this, I can't do that. And even I'll show them when they come into a client consultation, the anxiety wheel, I run that through them. They say, oh, that's how I'm doing anxiety. Almost like disassociating the person in front of you, and they're recognizing. So you're getting rapport without getting rapport. It's not salesy, and they're actually associating their problem, recognizing how they're doing it. And every little door opens slightly, because I liken it. So when someone comes to see you, the door is firmly shut. They've tried everything. It's not working. Like the hope, try and calm. I hope you can help me. And you're showing that they can change just by tweaking a minor tweak of relaxing your arms, doing the breathing, and thinking about what they want to have happen, as opposed to the complete opposite, like tensing your body, doing some terrible breathing, and imagine the worst thing can ever happen. And then suddenly that becomes their reality. And they don't know they're doing the reality because the burger brain I referred to makes it all real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that mindset of, again, using the education to kind of show, hey, this is how you're already doing this. And, to look at that, even the application of teaching is that little principle that even as we're teaching a technique, we're already running the technique by describing it and getting that foot in the door. Now, I know this is a product that you have, but just in a nutshell, kind of walk us through what that anxiety wheel pattern is.
Well, basically, it's like a little wheel on a screen. It's a movie, like a moving, what would I call it?
Cartoon?
Yeah, sort of thing. Yeah, cartoony sort of thing. So it's a wheel that turns. And on the first thing, it says the anxiety wheel. And it's, do you have negative thoughts? And the person's there thinking, yeah, I think I do. And do you often have feelings in your body? Because negative thoughts create feelings. And do you ever say things which become beliefs, like I am anxious, I'm sad, I'm depressed, and they're reinforced by this circle of anxiety that goes round and round and round. And I say, so in other words, when people can see what they're doing, they can take back control of it, almost like disassociating. Oh, I'm doing that. If you can recognize you're doing something you're not aware of, because I liken it to most people come and see me are doing hypnosis already, some sort of toxic trance. I can't drive my car, I can't leave the house, or that thing makes me anxious. Needles make me anxious. One thing it's missing is almost like taking responsibility and realize it's not that thing, it's your meaning you're making on it. And by doing that, you can have a little tweak, but not a great sort of magical intervention. But when people can see how they're doing stuff they get themselves out their own way. Also, if you can bring some resources in that state, because what they're doing is they're negating anything like relaxation. What are you missing when you're doing that anxiety thing? How are your body? Oh, my body's tense. So imagine doing that peripheral vision. So you stare at the walls, take a deep breath in, and notice the difference now as you try to get the anxiety thing back again. What's the subtle difference? In other words, getting the client to notice the difference, not what's the same. That came from James Tripp,
Mm-hmm.
What's different now? Notice a difference. Because when people notice a difference, then suddenly they get a difference, or they notice a change.
There's something that you've been doing recently, too, that I wanted to chat with you about, which is that you are charging for that consultation. There's no longer the free option, right?
Well, when I first started, I used to charge, it was free. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of Facebook marketing, and people would often say, yeah, I'm coming to do I'd turn up and stuff. They wouldn't show. So it was £20. And that was, I mentioned on your last podcast, it was an idea that Bob Burns gave me. He charged for the consultation. He doesn't advertise it, but I'm up front. But now it's like £50 for the consultation. Since last time it's gone up £20. And I'm still very busy. And next week I've got 16 clients, which is like nutty, Monday to Friday, that's all I work.
Yeah.
But it used to be Tuesday to Friday, but now I've had to open up Mondays now as well.
It's a rough life.
I'm charging for my Say again, what?
I said it's a rough life to be successful.
It is, yeah. But I mean, it's so in order to be successful, it's like I said to you in the last podcast, it's more than a job, it's an obsession.
Right, yeah.
It can be very obsessive. But I think I've become a little less obsessive now, which is quite good. So when you can take your foot off that gas and just cruise, but then also don't get complacent.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that game of,
the one thing.
Looking at the elements. I'm in the midst of, kind of a rebuilding of a lot of the steps of my business right now with the book launch and some of the speaking and just moving the office and still looking. It's like, yeah, but I want to keep that component, of course, of seeing clients. I enjoy that. I'm driven by that. And that doesn't mean we can't change the model of how we do it. But I love that idea that, again, you're charging for that actual consult time. What's when someone comes in for that? What's kind of that experience? Of course, I'm sure there's some sort of methodology to you're giving them an incredible experience, which then naturally leads to, yes, let's do this actual work. What's that experience for you?
Well, I do like the experience. A lot of people come and see me. They actually get a lot of change in the client consultation.
Yeah.
Which is okay, and they'll still follow through because I feel great now. It's okay, that's good, and I don't have to come back and see you. Well, that's your choice, but I mean, we haven't dealt with his emotions, so maybe down a few weeks of mine, it may come back. But I'm not putting that as a suggestion out there. But I mean, I do get a lot of change within client consultations, but they do book as well, which is a good thing. So they'll book there. It's £50. It's all prepaid advance. It's like when you go on a plane, you're going to make that commitment. You're not going to turn back. Even the client sessions as well. Everything's prepaid in advance, so it's on a schedule, and they know they're committed. That's what you want, commitment. So the experience is they come to the door, and like I say, most people are anxious, and I'll say, "You seem quite anxious," and they say, "Yeah, I am." But you shouldn't really. I'm here to sort of, assist you. I don't use the word help. That would imply you're a victim. I tell the client that as well, because all it is your thinking that's made you this way. So I'll go into the A, B, and C module. I'll say, grab my arm, and I'll pull my arm away. Notice that tension. So they're pulling my arm with both their hands, and as you feel that tension now, that represents your anxiety. But if you carry on pulling my arm away like you're doing, I'm going to relax my arm. As I relax my arm now, just notice how I'm controlling you. Oh yeah. And now I want you to do the same thing. So in other words, they're pulling my arm. You've got that concept, Jason, yeah? It transfers very well. Yeah. So as we swap it over now, yeah, now I'm going to pull your arm, you pull your arm away, but now relax your arm like a puppet, and just so put less energy into it. So they're putting less energy into their arm, and I say, good, now you're controlling me. So have a sit down, and what's the first thing you do with your body when you get anxious? Oh, they go, I tense it. Okay, so just relax your shoulders and do this breathing. So when you relax your arms and imagine your legs are relaxed and do the breathing. You breathe into 7, hold for 7, and out very slowly for 11. Because I'll say to you, I can't relax, okay? And then, but watch what they're doing because they won't be breathing properly, that's all. But as you allow yourself to relax on the third attempt, because like practice 3, just hear yourself say the word calm and just focus on that word calm. And I said, I'm watching them. I said, that strange thing you're feeling now is called relaxation. Welcome to, you can relax yourself. And they sort of giggle. Not everyone does. They got there because when people come and see you, they're taking their issue very, very seriously. And that's another way I frame it, imagine I did something last week with this client. What was it? I don't know if you ever watched Salty Towers. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know that bit where he gets out of the car and he hits the car with a branch?
Yeah.
A stick. He's going backwards and forwards to the hotel, to the restaurant, Andre's restaurant, to make that duck or whatever it's called. Yeah. And the car breaks down. So he gets out of the car and he hits the car with a stick. And I said, imagine it was only the other day. I said, and now imagine if you could imagine that anxiety is almost like that car that broke down. You're going to get out of the car and you hit it with a stick and just swat it away. And this guy just started laughing his head off, And I said, try to get it back to what it was after, so it really sort of reinforce it. And every time he gets the anxiety, he told me, he just thinks about Basil Fawlty and hitting it.
Nice.
Nice work, I mean, it works for him. It doesn't work for everybody. You've got to check, obviously, what's funny for them. But like even, and I'll say to them, the education of that is when your brain lights up, the neural networks will fire together. Even the problem issue, neurons are fired together, wired together, Hebb's law. And it's like when you're doing that problem, you're firing the neurons as well. But when you laugh about your problems, funny enough, your brain does those neural networks, positive neural networks, and it highlights them too. And they go, oh, I think I get it now. So and I sort of say to people, like, you never heard that expression where people just sort of like humor's good for them, or you can laugh at yourself. Or when you laugh at the world, you don't take yourself so seriously. And when people come to see you, my God, they're so serious about a problem. I've seen everybody. I don't think I'll ever get over this stuff, and that can keep it stuck as well. Mm-hmm. So like that little nuance, can help people, but subtly, of course.
Right.
Not
yeah.
my fame game. Yeah.
Which what I love about some of the work you've been doing is the way that you can bring in a metaphor that they're familiar with and then use that as the mechanism, which really becomes that foot in the door to help to produce that change of helping to explain this is how you're already doing this. I say this next thing not just as a sales strategy, but when you're on the phone with that person for quitting smoking, let's say, and as soon as it's the question of, how many are you smoking because you've made the decision to have one versus that's just what you'd always done it, which is just beauty of meta model questioning, chunking down to the specifics. They haven't yet thought of it that way, which even just doing that, suddenly now the perception of the issue is different than it was before, which now sets it in motion and allows you to go in and help them to, produce that change. I know you do something with Russian dolls too, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a technique I saw that in a class. James Tripp did this, and I thought, how can I make this better so I can understand it, because it's a bit over my head. Well, somebody, I don't know how it came about. Someone mentioned the Russian dolls. I thought, now that'd be a good vessel to use things, because now I've taken this a step further. So it's like a technique that's called the Russian dolls. Everyone, I don't claim it to be something new, so it's perceptual positions that say on acid, because when you can actually associate it would be a lead-in. It's almost like a strategy. So I'll do a lemon experiment. In other words, can you imagine? I'll show you a lemon experiment. Have you seen that?
Yes.
No. Yeah. Well, everyone's probably heard of that, but I'll go into a bit more detail. So the client sat there. Just imagine you're in your kitchen. Can you imagine that? Let's say yes, even though consciously you're sat in that chair, and then I'll go to the whole thing. Taste the juicy lemon, la la la, and I link emotions to like lemons. It's not real. So and once they can grasp that concept, they can imagine they're in their kitchen slicing a lemon, tasting it or whatever. They can also imagine themselves in this tiny Russian doll. I got like a little key fob that one of my hypnotherapy colleagues gave me. It's like a little tiny Russian doll, and everyone can grasp that concept. If they can do the lemon thing, they can also grasp the concept they're in this tiny Russian doll, which we'll refer to as the problem state, but not the problem state or the issue, because the problem it sounds like a real problem, just the issue, because problems need fixing, and we don't fix people, they change. So everything's like, so I'm careful of what I say. So go into the problem state and think about something you feel really good at, something you're proud of in your life, and that'd be the next Russian doll. But having said that, though, if they can't get into something good, it's as if they're full. They're full with all the food they've ate, metaphorically speaking, and all that stuff. And you can't get change. So I know with that client, it'll be tricky. So it's a great litmus test to see how any session or anything is going to work. You can get the resistant client. It's a great way of seeing how resistant your client is, because basically if they can't get this simple tweak, it's as if they won't get much else. So in that respect, I never fail. It's like I know where I'm going with this person. It could be a tricky person. Mm-hmm. That's all. Not a tricky person, but their mindset is so preoccupied with other stuff. they're full. They're so full that sometimes people need to talk about their issues. I don't get them to talk about their issues, but sometimes that may help them. So I'll give them just give me 10 sentences there, not 2, because because they want to vent a bit. Once they've vented, they can move on with the process. So it's a good process, a good technique to actually use with the client sessions, because you know where you're going to go, what other things you need to use with them, and whether the client's actually taking on board what you're saying. Because sometimes, like I say, they're full, and they'll say, "Oh, that didn't work for me. This didn't work for me."
There's something really beautiful about that, because it's a framing of. I'd intro it with the idea that the magician doesn't repeat the magic trick, not because you might figure it out, but instead because you know how it's going to end the next time. So this is that value of doing things prior to the hypnotic process, which of course is all hypnotic under the framework of, hey, before we get started, meanwhile, we've definitely gotten started, which is kind of informing you, this is how I need to best work with this person. It allows you, it's the phrase that's become popular nowadays, that there's really no resistant clients, there's just inflexible practitioners. And in that moment, you're seeing how they're responding to the metaphor. You're bouncing an idea off them consciously to see what's going to ring true unconsciously, as it were.
Yeah, definitely. And also idiomotor responses. I noticed, I mentioned that in your last podcast as well. When you work in peripheral vision, you're seeing all the whole person. So you can see those little tweaks. And sometimes with a client session, I can get quite confident in the fact that I know this person is going to answer with a little finger, or this one that on Friday I'm referring to. I said, you know, Bob Burns' The Swan, but so I do my version without the swan. Just put your hand there. I'll talk to that hand now. Just give it a little signal. But subconsciously, that this person wants to can let go of that stuff, and the finger will signal. Mm-hmm. And I think you when you get on knowing, it's almost like you trust your instinct. That's when you get out your own way and do great work. So one story I will tell you about, which is how metaphors on clients. This guy came to see me last week who was a young person, and the parents had to come with him. They said he had OCD. And I said, has he been diagnosed with OCD? Oh, no, but we think he's got OCD. Okay, so I think the mother sat there, the grandmother sat there, and he sat there, the whole audience. And the problem was taken very, very seriously. And I said, well, how are you doing this then? And he said, one of the things I've got is I need to, unless I go to bed at night and sleep in a certain position, I feel that my mum and my other parent may die. And I said, okay, and that seems true to you. Yeah, it does. Very true, very real. So with him, I showed him the Jürgen Rasmussen thing, which is the burning room.
Yes.
So as you close your eyes, imagine the room's on fire. La la. What's that like? Idiots. Okay, and do it again. This time, whenever you hear me say anything about that room, just hear yourself in your mind. Just say it's only a thought, it's only a feeling. It's not real. So if it was a 10 before. What's it like now? Oh, it's about 7. I thought, okay, we've got serious issues here. He's not even believing his own thoughts, you know. So I said, okay, open your eyes and look around this room. Is it burning? No. Okay, so imagine it's really on fire now. What's it like? It's getting quite hot in here. Oh, please. And then close your eyes again, and I want you to hear yourself say, it's fake. It's not real. I'm making this all stuff. So what's it like now? It's fake. Great. Oh, there was a big smile on his mouth, with a big smile on his face. He got over himself just in that moment. But one thing that worked for him was, like he said, I have this negative voice in my head. And this came from, I think it was Dick Bettinger. So you heard of him, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a great thing he does, because I put it in this post a couple of weeks ago on Facebook when someone said the control room. And it's similar to a control room. So I said, as you close your eyes now, I want you to imagine a lever or a dial. What color would that be for you? It's blue. Okay, in a minute, I want you to flick that switch and turn all that negative voice into Chinese or Cantonese. Can you do that? Yeah, so he did it. Flip the switch now, the blues were, and now it's in Cantonese. You can't even associate with this, like funny voices. And but after a while, if they try to infiltrate you, let's say you send a text message and I want you to see all that Chinese writing, and he said, yeah, it's great. So what's it like now? Trying to get the negative voice back. I'm like, oh, that's. He says, you're amazing. I said, no, I'm not amazing. You're amazing. You did it. He says, yeah, you're right. I'm amazing. Nice. And I said, what I want you to do between seeing me next year, because I booked him in for 3 sessions. I don't believe in just doing the one-off like miracle thing, but in a consultation, he certainly changed. So I booked him in for 3 sessions, and I said to him and his mother, what I want you to do is to sleep in the opposite side of bed, so sleep in the opposite end for 7 days before you come and see me, and you'll realise that everyone will be still alive because your mind's been tricking you about that burning room. And he said, yeah, okay, no problem. So he came back a week later. It was last Friday again. It was the second time I saw him. He slept on the opposite side of the bed. He sleeps like a dream. He's done really well. But he's still got this belief that it's almost like the reality, what's reality and what's not. So when you can dumb down those behaviors and those beliefs, you can take back control. But he does feel more and more empowered. He feels happier and stuff like that. Because I told him the story of somebody who came to see me once. I don't know if I mentioned this on the other podcast about somebody who touched 174 objects, OCD type thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think that came up. If not, refresh it.
Yeah. Well, she touched 170 only because she said touch wood in the client consultation. And then she sort of said, yeah, I do touch a lot of objects, and she's often late for work because she touched 174. I said, before coming to see me, what I want you to do is I did mention it, yeah, your favourite 3. So she did, when she came back to see me, like about 6 weeks later it was, because I was like really busy then, I said, how many of those objects did she touch? And she said, none. Well, I told this and she said, my head didn't fall off. She got perspective. So I told that story to the guy who came to see me, who slept in the other, the different angles of the bed and stuff like that, and worried about if his parents were going to die. Also, he does other rituals like coughing and stuff like that. So when he came to see me the other day, what did we do? Oh, I know, the spider. I had a real severe fear of spiders, and I liken the fear of spiders to virtually anything people do. But the way he was off the scale with it, I said, what's it like, that fear of spiders? Oh. He jumped out of his chair when I mentioned it. Seriously, that's how great hypnotist he is. That was from the consultation. What is it? Oh, about 10 plus. Yeah, okay. So I said, do you want to let go of that? Yeah. How will you know it's gone? Most important question. Well, I can just feel calm, and if there's one in the room, it won't bother me and stuff like that. Okay. So you haven't got one in the room to test it, have you? I said, no, it's fine. I don't do that stuff. No, little did he know. And so I think I did a bit of Psy-Tap on that, and it went. So then afterwards, I just tried to get it back. He couldn't. So I had this fake spider. He was chilled as anything. So then his mum was waiting in the hallway, and I said, "Oh, well, meet your new son." And she's like, "How did it go? It's great. How do you feel like on a scale of anxiety? What's it like now?" She says 0. On a scale of fear, what's that like? 0. What more do you want? So he's in for I got him for a couple of sessions though. But I mean, it's just to reinforce the changes that he's already had, to make it more and more robust. And that's the most thing about it, being congruent and actually imagine those situations you could not do that now. What's it like now? Oh, great.
What's beautiful about this is that you're using that conversational structure and something interactive to really get that foot in the door, just to kind of build the sort of the movie in the mind in terms of the actual work. Are you then going into, let's say, a formal hypnotic process towards the end of that, or is that kind of the shape of just how you're working with people nowadays?
It depends on the client. So everything's client led.
Nice.
This client is close your eyes. He will go in hypnosis.
Yeah.
The guy is in hypnosis in a trance. Like I liken everything people tend to do is a form of hypnosis. And they go, really? I just think I could be hypnotized. Well, if you're driving the motorway and you miss that turn off, everyone knows that one. But the clients sometimes don't realize that's a form of trance. Or you're watching a movie and you're getting annoyed or whatever, or getting crying, if that's a form of trance as well. And when people come and see me, they go, I don't think I can be hypnotized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you're doing
there's the foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's almost like there's a lot of re-education,
Mm-hmm.
And when people get it, they can simply live a better life, which is really great. And that's the buzz for all this stuff. When you get people to show them, oh, I'm doing that stuff. It's not that thing that's making me anxious. It's not that partner who's making me angry. It's actually me. And when they can get that, they get more control. When people come and see you, they go, I'm trying about losing control. It's actually the opposite. We give you more control, not taking it away from you.
Well,
and when people come and see me, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm always redirecting that. So when people come and see me, they sit in that chair, they're overthinking. Their mind's negative. They worry about this. They worry about that. So I'm talking about people in general. So I'm just talking about them, and they're getting it.
And what's beautiful about that, as soon as you've done that, you've put motion to it. You've put activity to it. And now it's a thing they can actually do something about it, as opposed to this is just what it is, which is often that mindset when they're first calling or coming in.
It's like they can't do anything. They're sort of stuck. But if you give them the tools, so in life things happen. So if I do like timeline, I'll use timeline using the Russian doll technique, which I found very effective, because when people tend to go into their issues, they go into the issues. But if they're in a large Russian doll doing it, as if looking at that tiny Russian doll, what have they done? They disassociate themselves. It's a great metaphor. It's a great technique that makes other things work better, I found.
Yeah.
Even in parts integration. Imagine that tiny Russian doll. We're used to that old behavior. And it's like on one hand, wherever it is. As you focus on that now, just notice how it feels, like you can imagine yourself. And then another one, oh, I can get that. The people can get it. It's almost like a vessel protects them as well. Protects them going into the problem, but also protects them in life. So I'll say to go through the whole process, and I'll say, do you remember you used to that old issue? Like as if you're in that tiny little Russian doll. But now as you distance yourself and you look back on that thing, as if looking at it from a cinema type perspective, ooh, yeah, that's what you're doing. What's it like? Oh, it's not so bad. It can only be bad when you go into that tiny Russian doll and, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, and that sort of negative mentality that keeps it all going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
People's hypnotic trances.
So we first
answer that question.
Yeah, I love that. We first connected years ago that when we were in a class together, and then kind of reconnected for the podcast. I'd love to ask this question. What's something that you would say you believed 2 years ago about the process, just in general or specific, that now you very clearly think otherwise about it?
The whole process, or change work, or?
I'll let you guide it.
Okay, cool. So basically now I believe the client in front of me is responsible for their own change.
Yeah.
That is it in a nutshell.
Nice.
It is, and I'll guide them there like a GPS. But invariably, people will like, and it's great. You get these. I get the client, the trickiest client. It's not say the client from hell, which I said a few weeks ago. It's like which is probably but it's like if the clients are listening, you're not a client from hell. You can change. It's just that your mindset probably thinks you can't. So, and this woman came to see me last week, and she said, "Well, I thought you were going to change my whole life by that magic wand scenario." Mm-hmm. And I thought, God, wouldn't that be cool? If I was doing that, I'd be charging £5,000 for a session. In fact, if you know anybody who can do that, please point them out to me, because I love a bit of change myself.
I'll give the disclaimer that,
yeah,
I'll give the disclaimer, this is not my line. But, if it was brainwashing, we'd be booking less appointments and charging more.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But seriously, I said, and so what are your expectations? So of our sessions? I don't know. What is it you want? I don't know. What if you could, you don't want that, don't you? True. So what would you like? It's such this person could be quite tricky, but seriously, it's like, I define some of the people to get results for the people who I see. It's almost like, yeah, I don't know what I want. So if you don't know what you want, how do you get there? Mm-hmm. And I just want to change it. And so before I do anything with those people, I'll hang back on them, because I know they're going to say, well, that didn't work. So it's like, you need to change the mindset before anything can work. Almost like, that food digest, that all the mental stuff, they've actually got filled with it. Their preconceptions, that's a big, that can be quite filling on the stomach, but I'm going to do all the work. So the biggest thing I can take away is really that first of all, see if that person's actually receptive to change. Do they want to change? Have they been sent by their partner? I mean, I saw someone the other night, I got real anger issues. Okay, right, who sent you? You came by yourself? Well, they've been meaning to come and see you for 2 years because my friends keep recommending you all the time. I said, what stopped you? And then he said something classic. This is a great takeaway here for therapists. It's like, whatever they say to you, it will be their reality, their strategy. Well, at the minute, when I go home, I avoid my missus and I go for a drink. I just ignore her. I treat them like terrible. I treat them so selfish, it's unreal. So that was a red flag to me, because I guarantee you'll do the same to me. And the same, so whatever they say, their strategy, they'll do the same strategy to you. So strangely enough, yeah, I booked them for the sessions. Have they contacted me? Have they paid? No. Mm-hmm. So whatever strategies some people say will be their strategies for life. So read between the lines, and that's one of the biggest takeaways. But also, are they receptive to change? Do they want to change? Or are they expecting you to do all the work? And also, a great question at the bottom of my client consultation form is, what are your expectations of our sessions together? So we can match those expectations.
What I love
in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love that, especially the mindset of putting it in the ownership to them, which is not necessarily, this is a phrase that people get hung up on sometimes, about not taking an emotional, side in terms of the change. That, we are stepping into that role of educator at times. We're stepping into that role of, as you said, this is what I've said too for years, that here's how you're already doing this. Let me show you how to do it better. Use those powers for good, as it were.
Yeah. When they can see they're doing it, because people don't know they're doing it, it's like, that thing makes me. It doesn't. Look around you. Use the world as your barometer. Is anybody else getting frightened on that flight? No, it's you. So obviously you're doing something in your mind that's actually stopping you move forward, you know?
Yeah, what I love is that these are concepts that you've not just been holding to yourself. You've put these out as programs that other people can learn from too, right?
It's called the Awesome Therapist, which is it gives you everything I use when I work with clients to have a successful practice. So from marketing techniques, how to be found, the most important thing, you have a great product that never can find you, you know what happens. And people can sort of wish those people turn up, and sometimes they don't turn up and the phone's dead. And a lot of hypnotherapists say to me, how do you get clients? And I say, well, first of all, do good work.
Yes.
That's the number one thing, you know. And but other than that, do a little bit of marketing. I don't spend thousands at all on marketing. Everything I do is usually free. So I list everything I use that gets me found. The next thing is client consultations. I go into depth how do I do a client consultation. Whether or not to see that client or not is a good thing, you know. Whether you can get change with that client. And then afterwards, I go more into depth of the techniques I use. There's also the Russian doll technique, which is very, very. It's a good tool to have in your back pocket as such, to recognize you've got a resistant client, but also to get change, longer lasting change, because they can actually not be in that issue. Then it goes into even more detail of what else do you get. So you get techniques for change. There's also a monthly a Zoom call where there's like other people within the actual forum that purchase it. They get a monthly Zoom call with me to answer Q&A type questions. And there's some slides. There's also movies. There's an interesting cartoon how the Russian doll works. Simple explanation, but it's like an 8-minute movie. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's like it shows the whole process from start to finish. And it's also every month, whenever I do a Zoom call, that's added into the program. If I find out another techniques, or if I get a challenging client, I'll share with the group how I work with it and post it within the Awesome Therapist training. So it's a product that never actually. It's like the gift of Christmas, they say. It never stops giving. For one fee only, you get this for life.
I love that. I like the launch with raving fans model, where it's just we just keep adding stuff to it.
Yeah.
I had a program I sold like 6 years ago that I just last week ran a promo on the game of going, oh, by the way, this thing you bought 5 years ago, here's version 2.0. Much better way to do things. Yeah, this has been awesome to reconnect and hear some of the updates on it, especially. What's really admirable inside of this is that, yes, giving credit where it's due. Here's an idea that I saw James Tripp do, but here's how I've put my spin on it. Here's something that I've heard Melissa Tiers talk about, but now having workshopped it with a bunch of clients myself, here's how I approach it, which, the skilled student out there will then go out there and, of course, yes, I'm inside of it too, pick up Awesome Hypnotist, pick up Anxiety Wheel, yet also then look back to the lineage and go, well, here's where this theme comes from. Oh, here's this thing that I, went through in my original certification class of the Lemon test and kind of dismissed, but I'm seeing, I got to start doing that again. But this ability to not get stuck inside of a process or a routine of something and instead challenge it and go, how do I make that work better? That's awesome. Hey, that is awesome, isn't it?
It is. The Awesome Therapist is. Yeah. Also, I do an awesome mentoring course as well.
And we'll put links in the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com. But Derek, where can people find your programs? Where can they get in touch with you?
DC at DC Mind Coach. It's Derek Chapman. That's the DC. And Mind Coach as a Mind Coach. Delta Charlie, mindcoach.com.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, for leaving your reviews, for sharing this in your social media streams. Head over to the WorkSmart Hypnosis website for the details about Derek's programs, and as well, check out WorkSmartBusiness.com. That'll give you all the details of the book, plus WorkSmartHypnosis.com/NLP Biz. That's Neurolinguistic Business. That's my 2-day live hands-on interactive course at this year's HypnoThoughts Live 2019. Thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned for next week for another awesome session. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I want you to be the first to find out as we upload new content here online. So do this right now. Click subscribe right next to this video, and you will be the first to find out as I share further resources, further downloads, and other really cool things to come your way. See you soon.